Happy New Year. Happy 2024 to everyone watching, everyone waking up or sleeping. I'm glad to be ushering in the new year with the video of one of my mother's lessons, and I'm glad to be alive, glad to be healthy, glad to be surviving and thriving in a very cold part of the world. But as people know, I tend to love the cold very much. 2023 is over. In my last video for this series, I wished people well on the coming years and so forth. And now we are in a whole new year. We don't know what this year is going to bring. We don't know the challenges that lie in front of us, but let's start talking about this lesson. So, in the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful, my hairs do something weird. The most gracious, the most merciful, welcome to another session of lessons from my mother, lesson number 64. And I was at a New Year's party yesterday. I went for karaoke and I sang a wonderful song, a wonderful rendition of Country Roads by John Denver, and then I had some friends visiting from Toronto, and we and some local friends, and we went down to the Lachine Canal, which is one of my favorite parts of Montreal, and then we went to Place des Arts, which is one of the centers of Montreal, and then we went to the Big Ring as well. So yeah, it was an active New Year's Eve. I hope you all had some wonderful ones too. And when I got home, I started reflecting on how my year had gone, how my 2023 had been, and what were my major achievements and what were my failures or setbacks or things I can achieve. So, for example, going to Mecca and witnessing the history of Islam and touching the house of God and worshipping and praying and going to Prophet Muhammad's mosque in Medina and just being there was greater than most things that I've achieved in my life. The time that I was in Mecca and Medina and Saudi and witnessing it, only a year before, right around that time, I was giving my TED talk, my first TED talk, and the symmetry wasn't lost on me, and I was like, wow, we live for these milestones, right? You can't really live for every day unless you begin each day on purpose. But then we have good and bad days too. So what we live for is these small and larger achievements all the time. So you say, oh, I wish I can lose 5 kilograms or 10 pounds in the next 2 months. And you say, okay. And you have a goal, and for the next 2 months, you're kind of going towards it. And then you're checking yourself every week, and you say, oh, I'm doing this much better, this worse. And you're living for that. I recently saw a video that Mr. Beast, one of the biggest YouTubers, if not the biggest in the world, did about being locked in solitary confinement. I can't remember for how long he was there. I think he was there for a week, which is 168 hours. And he didn't have a phone. He didn't have any electronic devices, and he couldn't speak to anyone. And all he had was a pen and paper, a pen and a notebook, and just very few things. And I was watching him, and I said, wow, when we have nothing in life, this is what happens. Because by the end of the second day, he was screaming, he was banging his head against the cushioned walls, he had a tray of food and he was throwing it against the wall. He was trying to find some sort of stimulation. And I first thought, okay, it's Mr. Beast. He is probably in the top 1% of productive people across the world. So it's understandable if you lock him in, he's going to have a problem. I would too. If you lock me in and say you can't do anything, after a while I'll start walking or start jumping or exercising or something. I have to have a purpose. There may be people who can just chill for a week and just smoke and just relax and not do anything and just be very easy about it. But I suppose you can do it for a day. I didn't know if you could do it for a week. And at that time watching it, I thought, wow, this is what life is like without purpose. This is what life is like without meaning, without drive, without something to go towards. Now, people who are much more relaxed and easygoing than I am, and they just take life as it comes, they still have certain milestones that they're hitting in their daily lives. I don't know anyone who wakes up and just stays in that static position, unless you're depressed or going through something, and just stays. And what do you do all day? Nothing. I was just here. I was just relaxed. You can't do it for a week. You can't do it for a month. You may be able to do it for a day or two. Can't do it for a year. You really can't. The human body is designed to shock itself. So we set up these small goals, some of which we achieve and others which we don't. And my mum has always said to be grateful regardless. I'm 5'8", average height, maybe tallish in Pakistan, but on a global scale, average height, and Montreal, average or even small. I'm excessively good looking. Thank God, I'm joking. I'm average looking, average weight, average everything. And my mum has always said, be grateful for how tall you are. You could have been shorter. Be grateful for how much you weigh. You could have been fatter or very thin anorexic. Be grateful for your face. You could have been uglier or something damaged, or maybe your nose doesn't work, or maybe your eyes or your mouth doesn't work. Everything works so perfectly, right? Well, thank God. Everything gets its job done, right? You don't need to put in extra help just to chew your food or see your television, right? So be grateful for that. And I said, what kind of achievement is that? I should be grateful once I've become prime minister. She was like, no, you have to be grateful for every little thing. And I used to think, that doesn't make sense. But as I grew older, and I was giving this example of small milestones, particularly for this reason, we set particular milestones. We say, tomorrow I'm going to wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning. And when you wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning, that is an achievement. Regardless of whether you go to sleep after that or you say, I'm going to stay in bed for the next hour. Still an achievement. Then you get up and say, I'm going to go for a run. I'm going to run for an hour. And then you run for 40 minutes. It's still an achievement because it's more than zero. And when you start looking at your day in this manner, you start realizing, I have so much to be grateful for. Try to think on the subatomic level. This hand is not really a hand. It's a hand in our fourth dimensional understanding, but at the subatomic level, it's millions of small particles constantly in motion, bound together by the four universal forces, and they're making me as I am. If you hit me with an EMP or like a pulse cannon, this hand would be destroyed, and all of me, I would just turn into a zombie or whatever, or just disintegrate. Isn't that a miracle that this hand is still in place, as is this? Those forces that are at work, they could be working in a million different directions. They could just say, oh, look at the sofa, I'm going to be part of the sofa now. Look at the umbrella in the back, I'm going to be part of the umbrella. No, they're part of me. That's a miracle. Enough, large enough that I can spend my whole life being grateful for it. Like, look, hands, look, 4 fingers, 8 fingers, 2 thumbs. Look, they work. Motor control. Look, opposable thumbs. Wow. That is something to be grateful for. We forget. I had to say it because it was New Year's Eve yesterday, and it's New Year's Day today, and it allows you to take a step back. And I've been writing a diary for 20 years now, since 2004. So I have had enough time to reflect and say, what have I been doing right and wrong? And one of the things was, am I grateful enough? I don't think I am, because I wake up and I say, this is my apartment. I have a bedroom, I have a living room, I have all of this. Rather than saying, dear Lord, I am so eternally grateful that I have an apartment bigger than my needs. Because essentially, I grew up in a hostel, in a dorm room. We used to have a bed and a table, and one, what shall I say, one cabinet, just like 30 centimeters, 1 foot wide, and I think 6 feet, 8 feet long. That was it. And I spent 4 years doing that. And before that, I've stayed in people's houses and basements and whatever. And now I have this much larger place than I use. Right, I spend most of my time on the table or on the sofa or on the bed. That's it. There's a whole kitchen. There's so many other things, but I have it, and I don't think I thank God enough for this. Same goes for my clothes. My clothes keep getting better and better every year. Don't just judge this. I love this orange, okay? But my clothes keep getting better and better every year. Um, so much so that when I open it, I look at my coats because I love coats and shoes, and I look at my coats and I say, these are pretty nice coats. I'm quite happy with my clothes. When I was at Oxford, I didn't have such nice clothes. I just had two pairs of suits in Oxford, and I used to alternate them all the time, a black and a blue. But here I have six, and I have coats, and I have shoes, and I'm like, I'm so grateful. And when I open my fridge and I look at, and I have fruits, I have meat, and I have greens, and I have uh, juices and drinks, and I say, wow, I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful because I have had an empty stomach. I have had an empty fridge. I have had empty many things. So I remember all of them very well, and I'm reminded of it. So I'm grateful. And in Islam, one of the ways that we express our gratitude to God is daily prayer. And you'd say, okay, daily prayer, that's nice. A lot of people meditate. A lot of people wake up and they chant and they connect with their soul. My business partner slash sister has a wonderful morning routine. Reem, if you're watching this, shout out to. I should shout out my friends in every video. One of them in each video. But Reem has a wonderful morning routine. It's very complete. It's very holistic. It's very soulful, and it reminds you to be humble, to be grateful, to celebrate, and so forth. But that's once a day. And in Islam, you pray 5 times a day. And every time you pray, you submit yourself in humility and modesty, and you're grateful and you're gracious. And whether you believe in God or not, that's not the point here. The point here is that you're spending moments of your day remembering that what you have is what you wanted just a few years ago. 3 years ago, just a bit over 3 years ago, I had moved to Canada from England, and I remember the whole immigration process, the documents, all the documents, the traveling to London to get your fingerprints and give this and give that, all of this. And at that time, I was like, oh, Brexit is happening. Oh, what will happen now? Oh, the pandemic. Well, the pandemic started right after I got my papers. And it was like, Brexit's happening. England's going to suffer. And I remember at that time, like, oh, what if Canada doesn't happen? I'll just stay here and let's see what happens in Brexit and blah, blah, blah. And now it's been over 3 years and I'm here. And I'm grateful. But I forget. But if I were praying every day, which now I do on occasion, thankfully, at least once, um, I would be reminded of it. I'd be saying, oh, I'm so grateful that I'm alive. I'm so grateful that I have a house. I'm so grateful that I have food, and I'm so grateful that I'm in the country that I wanted to be in, and I'm doing work that I wanted to do. So everything that you are looking at right now, try to think back to 5 years ago, 3 years ago, 2 years ago. It's very much possible that the things you have today are things that you wanted a few years ago. Our problem as human beings is that while we move, this all becomes a blur, and everything here becomes in focus, and you're like, oh, I want this, I want this, I want this. That's it. So the goal here my mum had was to not let me become neglectful, irresponsible, ungrateful, and to celebrate and champion the wonders that God gives me and my family. And if you don't believe in God, the wonders of the universe, just substitute the word universe for God, if that suits your fancy. I'm not concerned about whether you agree with my belief or not. But for me, God is central, right? So the grace and the graciousness goes towards Him and to other people. That was the other part. I remember a friend of mine. What did he do? I can't remember what exactly he did. This was 2005. This was a long time ago. A friend of mine came in. I needed something, and I think he lent me money or he lent me his car or something. I'm drawing a blank, and I used the thing that he gave me, and then I was like, all right, thanks, man, thanks. I just forgot all about it. I just said thanks, and that I was done with it. Well, you lent me your car. I thanked you. I shook your hand, tapped your back, all done. And I told my mum, and my mum said, no, that's not enough. He didn't have to give you his car or money or whatever it was. Let's assume it was his car. He didn't really have to do that. He did it because he's your friend. He went beyond the call of duty. He was there for you in a time of need. Just tapping him on his back or shaking hands is not enough. You have to be truly grateful. Are you truly grateful? And I was 18, and I was like, wow, I don't know. So well, think about it. What if he hadn't helped? Could you have demanded him to help? Could you have said, no, you have to help me? I was like, no. So he helped you out of the goodness of his heart. When somebody gives you something out of goodness of their hearts, you don't just take it for granted. You're grateful, and you express that gratefulness to the other person and to God. So I remember I called him, and then I went to see him, and I said, man, if you felt that I wasn't thankful, I was thankful. I was like, no. I was like, no. I really want to make a point. I'm very thankful because many times people don't help us. And it almost became awkward in the sense of, it was like, okay, all right. Oh, because British people can't really take a compliment. If you go to a Brit and say, I love your work, they're like, oh yeah, cheers. And they're like, I think you're a fantastic actor. They're like, yeah, okay, get away from me. That's how the Brits are. Americans, on the other hand, they love their praise. But I went and I said that. And that kept something inside me. And I said, okay, anytime a friend does anything for me, I'm going to be grateful. Anytime a friend maintains their friendship with me, I'm going to be grateful. That doesn't mean I'm a horrible person or that they're saints. It means we have signed a covenant, or it's a word, a spoken word, or a bounding contract, and you have kept your end of the bargain. I'm grateful that you've kept your end of the bargain. And I behave the same way with my neighbors, with my colleagues at university, and with my colleagues at the office, with all my friends, with people at the grocery store, people on the street. If I'm walking on the street and somebody's walking next to me and there's a blockage, like some ice or something, I would stop for them and I'd say, why didn't you go right ahead? And I'm gracious. I'm saying, okay, please, of course, why didn't you go right ahead? And 100% of times, at least in Canada and England, 100% of times they've turned around, man, woman, old, young, child, elderly, and say, thank you so much, you're so kind. I'm grateful for what you've just done for me. You don't know me, you don't have to do that. The same happens on the bus when I give my seat to elderly people. I always give my seat to elderly people, and they're like, oh, thank you. And they speak to me in French most of the times. But they're so grateful. And the goal is to seek opportunities to be grateful to other people and for them to be grateful to you. And imagine what you're doing. You can map this in terms of game theory or discrete maths. You could start with one person who is expressing gratitude and receiving gratitude with his actions. And then you have a similar other person, and the way they interact with each other, it's mutual service. And then there's a third person and a fourth person. And very soon you start seeing all of society come together, bound not by rules, laws. Those are regulations and they govern us. I'm not against rules and laws, but they're bound in this act of, I wouldn't say servitude, but I would say gratitude. I'm grateful to you and you are grateful to me. And one may say, like my Hindi friends always say, that when we say namaste, we are recognizing the divine in the other person. I don't know how many people who say namaste or namaskar today mentally connect with that belief, but initially it was written in this manner. Or as a Muslim, when you say assalamu alaikum, you say peace be upon you, and the other person says peace be upon you. What is that creating? These things cannot be regulated. The tacit, the interpersonal cannot be regulated by external top down laws. And that's perfectly fine. The laws are meant to prevent you from hazard, from danger. They're not meant to force you into a direction. So when in Islam it says don't eat pork, don't drink, or whatever, it's protecting you from what Islam believes is a dangerous situation. It's protecting you from that. Do everything else. Cool. So it's not really deterministic and rigid that you have to do this. It's protecting you from all that. The thing that happens in the positive or the normatively positive is this. If I'm grateful to you and you're grateful to me, and we develop this cycle or this infinity between us, and then we just expand that all around us, you'll see that, and everybody manages to do that, then we have achieved a utopian society. I'm not saying it's possible. I'm not saying we're going to go there. I'm just talking about the concept. I'm not saying that it's universally possible for everyone to be grateful to one another. That wouldn't work. It's impossible to do it because of variations in human beings and nuances. But what I am saying is that enough people can get to it. And how do you get enough people to it is by getting to it yourself. So my motto, although I don't believe in New Year's resolutions or mottos or whatever, but my motto this year will be to be a bit more grateful for what God has given me and what he gives me through other people, and to celebrate that a bit. And my mum has been very influential, and so is my dad, and so have some of my friends, where they say, Ali, you're earning money, but you don't spend it. And I'm like, yeah, I'm saving, because I've been poor and I've been hungry. Oh, I've been in that domain and I don't want to be there. And I'm like, you don't have to be in that domain, but you don't have to live like an ascetic monk. You're not Buddha. You don't have to live that way. You can buy some clothes. You can get a better place. You can buy some technology. You can travel a bit. You can enjoy all of that. And I'm like, okay, fine. And my mum was like, look, if you don't celebrate it, then that's not really being grateful to the Lord. The Lord has given you this greater salary or this greater work and these opportunities. The Lord is giving you them, and whatever they reap, you're like, oh, I'll hide this money and just I'll survive on this. No, celebrate it. Thank the Lord, and then celebrate it. Be grateful that God has given this to you. So my message to the 8 billion plus members of my human family across the globe, and some in the space station, is that wherever you are, whoever you are, whatever you're doing, I hope you are grateful for what you have, and I hope that grace brings you even more. And in the works of Chadwick Boseman, what was it? May God bless you abundantly, exceedingly and abundantly more for what's in store than he ever has before. So have a wonderful new year. And I shall see you again next